Wild Cumberland is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and all donations are tax deductible. Learn more and take action at wildcumberland.org. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Jessica, Executive Director of Wild Cumberland.
And I'm Devin, a Wild Cumberland volunteer.
We appreciate you being here.
We begin every episode with the same reminder, but it's important. Our monthly email newsletter is the very best way to stay up to date on issues affecting Cumberland Island and its wilderness. So if you're not already subscribed, go to our website, wildcumberland.org, and sign up now.
In today's episode, we discuss what's happening at the seashore this spring, sunken shrimp boats, sea turtle nesting, black mangroves, virtual auction updates, and more. Spring is here and bird migration is underway. Sea turtle nesting season has begun, and there are lots of folks recreating.
Cumberland Island National Seashore reported nearly 74,000 visitors last year. The highest volume of visitors appears to have occurred from March through May, when there were approximately about 30,000 visitors over just these 3 months. 30,000 in 3 months, right?
I'll point out the numbers may actually even be a little higher than that. The agency disclaims that those may not reflect accurate use, but there's always exceptions at Cumberland as to how that data could be tabulated and collected. So there's just a lot we don't know, but 30,000 people over 3 months is a lot.
That's
for that
insane.
Little island.
Yeah, I hope we can get some clearer answers from new site management. The more we know, the more effective that we can be in helping to meet the seashore's needs.
Yep.
That being said, the newsletter mentions some recent observations, things like new signage for wilderness and vehicular speed limits. Unfortunately, it also noted some alarming visitor behaviors that have been
happening.
Yeah.
So we consistently see bike tracks on hiking trails leading in from the beach. And that's north of Sea Camp and within often designated wilderness. So that's continuing to happen. And disturbances of our shorebirds from e-bike and bike users is... that's always happening. We're seeing that commonly.
Yeah. And this year specifically, we've seen a lot more.
Yeah. Some of these things really pain me, actually. We've seen some really deep holes dug and abandoned on the beach, which can be especially dangerous for wildlife, including several endangered species. We've witnessed visitors feeding wildlife. We've seen unleashed dogs, and we've seen folks wading into the water to try and get a better view of the manatees. So, things that are really concerning. We also, of course, see increased litter on the trails and the roads and some of the common areas. So,
and of course, these could be things that, people just don't think about, or they just don't stick out in the top of your head, right?
Right. I mean, well, it's easy. Your map can become, disengaged from your pack, your trash, your sunglasses. I lost my favorite pair of sunglasses there just recently. So if anybody finds my big orange frame sunglasses, please, I can offer you like a small finder's fee or something. Right. They weren't expensive, but they really were my favorite. But there are things happening, like there are hygiene receptacles in the women's bathrooms.
Yeah.
Which we really appreciate. And I have seen people cram all kinds of stuff in there. Stuff like food containers and bags of dog waste. I mean, it's not meant for general use.
Yeah.
And I would really hate for the women to have that those receptacles removed or restricted further. So I really hope that other visitors will be mindful of the very limited use that we have on the island.
Sure. Yeah. This is a good reminder to ensure all your gear, your maps, your trash, your sunglasses, Jess.
Yes.
And everything else that you have are properly secured. Remember, there are no trash cans on the island.
Yeah. And take an extra trash bag, right? Always take an extra trash bag, because if you don't need it, someone else will, or you'll find someone else's crap.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. A little disappointed about the trash and the other things that are going on from the visitors, but things happen. No one wants to be policed on that or anything like that. You never want to take someone aback by hey, don't do this.
I think that though there's opportunities for a more thorough visitor interpretation.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
More staff would help. I think it's really, though, people are missing something, and it's valuing the resource, right? Because
Sure.
people can tell you what to do. People can police you on how to do it. They can actually employ police officers to do that. But we have to really think about our actions and model stewardship for these places when we're experiencing them and out enjoying them.
Right. It shouldn't be don't do it for the sake of not doing it, right?
Right.
There is a reason behind all
Absolutely.
of these rules. Yeah. We did include a few tips in our May email newsletter about how visitors can help protect wildlife when they visit. And of course, we do urge you and our supporters to help document and report what they experience on their visits, both good and bad.
Yep.
They are both critical. Find even more information on our website, wildcumberland.org. And when you're there, don't forget to download your free Wild Cumberland Kids Activity Pack and pick up a t-shirt before your next trip.
I really love seeing people get off the boat in their shirts. That makes my heart very happy.
That green spotlight, I love it. I love the logo and everything. But protecting and advocating for wildlife on Cumberland Island is only one part of the equation. There's a lot more to keeping Cumberland Island wild, of course. As a reminder, our volunteers engage in advocacy, research, public education, and a whole lot more. We're consistently advocating for better funding, qualified staff, and improvements in transparency and accountability. We attend festivals and curate free public programs centered on wilderness. We track relevant policies. We comb through research. We build relationships. Everything to ensure that Cumberland Island remains protected. So that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast, right? Is to get that info out there.
Yep.
Speaking of, there were a lot of really significant updates in this newsletter, right, Jess?
Yeah, I maybe should apologize, but there is a lot going on in the park around the world. And I'm pretty amazed that our team manages to curate such a collection of information every month.
That being said, if you find an article or topic that you think is relevant for us to include, feel free to send it in our way. And,
I love when people send us stuff and things for me to read and consider. Absolutely.
And just as importantly, we'd like to know what you think about our podcast. After you finish listening today, try out the new feature on our website. You can send us a voice message. We covered this on our last one,
nobody's done this yet. I wish someone would try it out.
For sure. I'm going to do it in a different voice just to get something on there, right? So let us know what you think. Ask us any questions you may have, and maybe you'll hear your own voice on the next episode of the podcast.
Yep. That sounds like fun.
So getting into it, on April 23rd, the National Park Service announced Cumberland Island Deputy Superintendent Steve Theus will depart to serve as superintendent for Little River Canyon National Preserve and Russell Cave National Monument in Alabama, effective on May the 5th. This comes on the heels of the appointment of a new superintendent for Cumberland Island.
Yeah, we'll miss Steve. He's such a nice guy, but he's going to move to a really pretty part of our country.
Sure, yeah. Good luck to you, Steve. MPS executed controlled burns in April adjacent to Stafford Campground and also a debris pile near Plum Orchard.
Yeah, they got that debris pile in just before restrictions set in. I think most residents can't burn, I think, May 1st through September 30th of every year.
Oh, yeah, they cut it close on that one. Right?
They really did, but they got it in. Nice. So.
Dredge material continues to be dispersed and leveled along the main road. A little word of caution here. Seashore visitors may encounter dust, noise, and increased vehicle traffic. Those guys were really hustling up and down the road and zooming equipment around like crazy. That equipment is, the kick up on that is real.
Yep. Really tough for hikers and bikers, I think. It's important. It's a 1-lane road. Mm-hmm. For months you could hear the equipment just when you were camping at Sea Camp as it was moving about in Raccoon Key. So we're anxious for them to complete that project.
Sure. Any ETA, you think?
Not for me. Nope.
Not for me. All right, moving on. So according to the April 2024 edition of the MPS's Southeast Coast Network News, say that 5 times fast, A black mangrove has recently been discovered on Cumberland Island.
Yep, that's true.
Any type of new species on Cumberland? I mean, that's not a normal species to
Well,
get
I
on
think
Cumberland.
most people don't think about seeds being carried around the world by water, but it really does happen all the time. And they don't always land and grow on a seashore, but these things reach like 40 to 50 feet tall, I think, and they have roots that come up instead of they going down. And so they form a network, these roots that function very much for erosion control, and they collect silt and stuff. They take in salt water and they excrete the salt onto their leaves, but they use the water. So
wow, that's
yeah,
incredible.
I mean, it's really, they're kind of amazing. So, but they're super susceptible to freezing, which is why it's interesting to see how perhaps something like this will fare on the island. But yeah, so that was a really, really cool mention in the newsletter. And if you guys don't read that newsletter regularly, they produce that once a quarter. And it typically summarizes all of the goings on in the southeast region of parks. So
the
you
entire
can,
Southeast. Okay,
yeah, so you
gotcha.
can find a whole lot of information there. But anyway.
Yeah, I imagine with it being quarterly with the entire Southeast region, there's a lot.
But you can get a sense
information
of
there.
what's happening, you know,
Sure.
and where their priorities are. We also provided a pretty in-depth update about spring bird monitoring this year, or this newsletter, thanks to Sarah Manning from our friends at Birds Georgia. I think we should have her on for a guest episode soon,
That would be great.
where we can talk about
Sarah,
birding.
come on out.
Yeah, let's do it.
There's also a habitat construction / like restoration project happening close to Cumberland, right? Maybe
Yeah.
she'll know more about that.
I hope so. I mean, I think they're taking dredge material from the intercoastal and putting it in an area near Cabin Bluff that's supposed to form an island and help support some of our nesting birds. So
Sounds pretty cool.
interesting.
I'm
yeah.
all for supporting nesting birds. So.
I love our birds.
And of course, can't forget, sea turtle nest monitoring officially begins this month.
That's like, you know, a big deal on the seashore.
Yeah.
So I usually do a social post and let people guess or make a guess on the nest count each year. Did you make a guess yet?
I'm going to make a guess on here. I'm going to make it live. I'm going to go with probably around 3,500
That
nests.
is huge. That's
Right?
a high number.
I shot high.
I like it. I like that you are that positive, and I would love,
I'm open for a good year.
I love it. I love it.
The sea turtle monitoring program on Cumberland Island is managed by MPS biologist Doug Hoffman. Of course, Mark Dodd, who is with Georgia DNR, serves as a coordinator for our state's overall sea turtle conservation programs, not conversation programs. We pointed out that 2023 data that indicates nearly 1/4 of the sea turtle nests on Cumberland Island were relocated above the high tide line, and linked to studies that indicate sea level rise rates that are unprecedented along the southeastern coast.
Yeah. We also linked to a virtual session we hosted with Mark Dodd and our friends at Birds Georgia back in, I think, 21. So you could check that out if you didn't get to attend or want to know a little bit more about how they manage those species on Cumberland.
For sure. We hope you've been enjoying the Wild Cumberland podcast, where you can stay up to date on everything affecting Cumberland Island and its wilderness. If you value our mission and purpose, we ask that you share this episode with at least one friend. This simple act helps us grow our audience and improve our messaging for the organization.
Another shrimp trawler sank.
Another.
On the 24th. So it was like, I don't know when our listeners will hear this, but it was April 24th, smack dab between the end of North Atlantic right whale calving season and the start of sea turtle nesting season.
Right.
This vessel was named Shirley and Tammy, and it sank about 7 miles off the coast, sort of between Jekyll and Cumberland. So
That's not far.
not really, but it is in federal waters. Mm-hmm. So it happened near what's known and authorized as a dump spot on our coast. So I'm not sure exactly the correlation there, but the U.S. Coast Guard did respond and safely evacuated its passengers, but we haven't been able to confirm that the boat's nets and rigging have been removed. And this obviously is a pretty serious and risk to marine life at this time of year in particular. So there's been debris found on Jekyll, St. Simons, and Cumberland Island.
Naturally, right?
We had a volunteer who went up in the air with a really generous pilot to let us take a look and see what we could spot. And apparently no sheens from the vessel have been reported. So the federal government doesn't have to do anything about it. And I guess it's irrelevant that it's hurricane season and maybe,
Right.
But it's in federal waters. So the state hasn't done anything about it. And it's sort of always like this.
The state has been clear that they have no budget for marine debris removal, right?
Yeah, that is actually sadly true. And so basically these mama turtles are just trying to make it through the last leg of their journey to reach these beaches that we have so thoughtfully protected for them and brag about having the most undeveloped shoreline in the state. It's crazy. So, I mean, in my opinion, the rigging and the nets should have been removed immediately. Everybody's acting like it's not a big deal and it's not their responsibility. I don't think there's any insurance requirement in Georgia. I don't know what the answer is.
I heard the Coast Guard will send the owner, who's an 80-year-old, I think he's a veteran of the industry.
Yeah, he's been shrimping a long time.
Right, yeah. They're going to send him a bill fining him for each day he doesn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But you think there'd be a little bit of a better process for this?
There should be. Shrimp trawlers sinking in Georgia is not a new issue. It's the last time this happened, you guys may recall, it was just 2021, and it occurred actually on the St. Mary's Jetty, so much closer to Cumberland. It happened in June, and because of it being hurricane season and the number of tropical storms and the churning in the ocean, debris got everywhere.
Yeah,
and it sat there a really long time breaking up. So, but not long before that, there was one near the Altamaha. There was one near Talbot Island, I think in 18. There was one near Brunswick in 15. There was one near Jekyll in 14. This is not a new issue.
Sure.
And other states have programs to ensure that this doesn't happen. Florida, South Carolina, there are programs in place to help prevent boats from getting into this place and boat owners from getting into this place.
But Georgia doesn't have one. I think a smart thing to do would be to start by looking at other states' program to kind of establish our own. That's just my opinion, which, they may have done, but they just haven't broken ground on it.
But either way, those nets are just sitting there. That rigging's just sitting there over a dump spot during hurricane season and while endangered species are migrating to their nesting habitat.
Perfect timing, right?
Just to restate that for everybody.
And a couple days after that, didn't they announce that the white shrimp is in the process of being designated as Georgia's official crustacean?
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, right after this happened, that announcement came out. So, priorities, people.
Yeah, right. We'll keep you updated on that.
And then I want to talk about something else, Dev. Can we talk about this little piece of land down there in Camden County that U.S. Representative Buddy Carter had owned? Can we?
Sure.
This doesn't really, it's not Cumberland Island, but it's kind of relevant.
It's related
because of the spaceport.
Sure. So for those of you who have kind of followed along with the never-ending spaceport Camden saga, you may recall that in 2018, U.S. Representative Buddy Carter purchased almost 500 acres of undeveloped property, just conveniently down the road from where spaceport Camden was supposed to be located.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Carter originally purchased the tract for a little over $2 million, but didn't provide it in his congressional financial disclosures, indicating it was not an investment but intended for hunting and fishing.
Mm-hmm.
The marshfront acreage was listed for sale at right about $4.25 million, and it's currently under contract.
Yeah. So wait, how much was it listed for originally?
Originally, you're talking about the marshfront acreage?
Yeah.
$4.25 million.
Well, no. So originally he purchased it for $2 million.
Oh, he purchased it for a little over $2 million.
He purchased it for $2 million and said he was not doing it as an investment. Spaceport Camden did not happen, and he is now selling it for $4 million.
Correct.
Just wanted to make sure everybody.
Right. Just following the tracks.
Clear there.
Speaking of never-ending sagas, such as that, there have been updates on two important issues, right?
Yeah.
So can or should we touch on some of these?
We should, but I think we
do it.
should revisit both of these in detail in future episodes. So let's
Okay.
maybe keep it a little high level today. First, there was an update of sorts on the feral horse litigation. Judge Sarah Garrity is reviewing the briefs for and against dismissal of this litigation.
I told you there would be more about feral horses earlier.
You did warn our listeners. So the state agencies are asking for the case to be dismissed, claiming sovereign immunity and a lack of jurisdiction on the federal property. And the Park Service is arguing it doesn't it doesn't have jurisdiction because there's not like a binding or final agency action that makes them do something, which the premise of the case is that it's been their inaction or their non-action, or I don't know if you want to call it avoidance or negligence, that has brought the entire lawsuit.
Yeah.
So
seems like a little bit of a ping pong match on that
Always.
one, right? So nobody wants to take responsibility on it. It's always pass the buck.
not my jurisdiction, not my
right.
budget, not my responsibility. It's
Right.
it's ping pong. Yeah.
What's it going to take for something to happen?
I really don't know. I hope Judge Garrity issues a decision in a timely fashion. I'm excited to hear what she will decide.
One can only hope. And then, of course, there was a decision from the 11th Circuit of Appeals.
Yes.
That's related to the dock that was constructed on the Lumar track
Yeah.
adjacent to Sea Camp, right?
So this is that parcel of land that runs the width of the island adjacent to Sea Camp and has been under litigation, or the dock associated with that parcel of land has been under litigation for a very long time. Basically, this decision means that it has to go back to the district court for a ruling on whether they violated NEPA. The U.S. Army Corps violated NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act,
Right.
by approving this dock be built. So if the district court decides, yes, they violated NEPA, the Corps would then have to go through that process. And they would have to assess the need for the dock. They would have to assess the dock's impacts and alternatives with notice to the public, which is sort of what should have happened originally
Right.
and did not. So they bounced it back and said, yes, you have to make a decision. And all of that is, of course, subject to additional,
Sure. Another ping pong match,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
We got a lot of ping pong
Pattern
games
here.
going on, folks.
But did you see that the Week Junior magazine? Okay, so this is something parents of school-age children are probably familiar with. It's a news publication, right?
Okay.
Like Scholastic Magazine, or like
Sure,
some of the
yeah.
ones that we used to get. So the Week Junior covers like a place of the week, each publication. And Cumberland Island was featured.
No way.
I was so excited when my kids brought it to me, and they came shrieking. They said, Mom. Look. And I thought that was pretty cool.
And, of course, they're pretty familiar with the island.
Yeah, they were excited to see it get some press in their publication.
Yeah. How many times would you say that they've been on the island?
Oh my gosh, I cannot count.
Right?
I've given up trying. But I think we should do something fun.
I think so too. Yeah.
Why?
How about we
Yeah.
send a prize to the first person who emails us with the date of the week that this article was published.
Yeah,
right?
I want to see if anybody can find it. This is our podcast. We can do
Yeah,
what we
I
want,
mean, we
right?
can do what we want, right? So who's picking the prize?
I have a prize in mind, actually.
Okay.
We've got our auction coming up, so I've been like in prize mode. I've been
Right.
thinking about all these good
Sure.
things. But can it be a surprise?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
All right.
we got to make the listeners wait a little bit, right?
So the first person who emails us with the date
That the
where the
article-
Week Junior published Cumberland Island as its place of the week
Right.
gets a prize from us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sounds great. Surprise. Right?
Surprise, surprise.
All right. There were a few other items that we should highlight from our newsletter. Our friends over at National Parks Traveler recently reported that the NPS was recently ordered by a judge to create a marine reserve zone at Biscayne National Park. And I quote, "The state and the Park Service in 2015 had seemed in agreement to create a marine reserve zone. But the pushback from the fishing industry and politicians prompted the Park Service to shelve the marine reserve plan. In his ruling, Judge Contreras noted that the harm that has fallen on the park because of that decision." Interesting, right?
DOI also announced expansion of 4 other national wildlife refuges in New Mexico, North Carolina, Texas, I think were those.
Okay. And there was big news about Okmulgee.
Yeah.
But I was excited to hear about this executive order recently that's designed to recognize, honor, and reprioritize women's history in the EPS. What do you know about that, Jess?
Oh, not much yet, but we'll keep you posted. Really, really excited about that one.
Sure. And the Biden administration also released something called an American Conservation and Stewardship Atlas. And that sounds pretty important.
It could be. I think it's supposed to track progress towards the goal of conserving 30% of our lands and oceans by the year 2030. So I haven't played with it yet, but
Sure.
it could be a
Sounds
really
good on the
powerful,
surface, right?
powerful opportunity. Yeah.
Seems like a lot of details there that we'll have to look into.
Well, I think maybe we just identified a volunteer opportunity.
Look at that. Absolutely. So,
yeah.
if you're listening and this tickles your funny bone, holler at us, right? There are so many ways that you can contribute. What else do we need help with?
Well, thank you for asking,
Everything,
Devin.
right?
We need help with research, writing, staffing events. I mean, most of you know we're a small grassroots group. We have no paid staff, but we manage to accomplish a lot. And so the more support we have, the more we can accomplish. We're working on a wish list. Maybe I can mention that.
Yeah.
So folks can purchase and send us items that we need to acquire. And then
That's great.
We're always looking, I'll throw this out there, for a print vendor sponsorship because paying for materials is expensive and we need more of them for our public engagement opportunities.
Speaking of print vendor sponsorships, right?
Yeah.
I think this is the right time to plug our virtual auction.
And I have to take some ownership here because I've changed the dates. And that is not something that I like to do.
Right.
That bothered me very
things
much.
happen,
but
know?
things happen, and we've been really busy. We've had volunteers in airplanes. We've had comment letters, lots of things going on. So it's moved slightly, but we're still getting it in May 31st through June 2nd. It will still fall Friday through a Sunday. And you'll have 3 days to bid on all of these incredible items that our contributors have so generously donated. We've got gift cards to restaurants. We've got art, all kinds of
So many
stuff.
things.
I revealed a little something about the mystery box if you follow us on social.
Saw
So
that.
this bid, these things you can only bid for 3 days, May 29th through June 3rd, and we will be sending out a special email between now and then. So
I love it.
Stay
I love when the
apprised.
auction rolls around. So many great items from, so many things I like to support.
I wanna buy them all.
Local artists, everything. I wish I had enough money to buy them all. Wish I had enough money to really help, Wild Cumberland, but I choose to volunteer.
every
right?
dollar counts, though.
Exactly.
It makes a difference, and we try to be really frugal with how we spend those dollars.
All right. So that's been a lot of news for today.
So
And
much news.
we've expressed lots of ways for you to help support our work. And we even offered a little surprise, right?
I mean, we really covered a lot of ground today, Devin. We know how valuable your time is, so thanks for choosing to spend some of it with us today. Stay wild.
The Wild Cumberland podcast is produced by Vertical River, and this episode was edited by Greg Cuson.